All right, and we are live. Let's give people a minute to hop on to the second broadcast.
Take two. Better than less. Better than ever. Yes.
We have resolved our technical issues.
Yeah, our technical differences have been resolved.
Okay. Give people a minute to hop on to the...
I can hear you talking, which doesn't feel right because your mouth isn't moving. Yeah.
I'm going to... We have resolved our technical issues.
Yeah, our technical differences have been resolved.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So welcome to the Cool Data Project Show, where we talk to data practitioners about interesting projects that they're working on. Today, we are speaking with Jacqueline Nolis, who is, we've been friends since 2008. We went to grad school together. And she is going to be telling us about her GGIRL library, not GGirl.
Not GGirl, although you really want to call it, everyone, including me, wants to call it GGirl, but it's
Yeah. Well, GGirl is also an awesome name. I was like,
GGirl is a good name, yeah.
Girl, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Jacqueline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jacqueline Nolis. I'm the Chief Product Officer at SaturnCloud. And me and Kristen go way back, as she said. We were grad students together. And so I like doing lots of projects, side projects in data science because I think they're fun. So the project I'm going to talk about, GGIRL, is something I did in my free time. And you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, that seems interesting, but not practical. And you are like, you are right. It is probably not practical. It is not something that you would necessarily use in your work. It's not necessarily something I make lots of money on, but I do think it's engineering wise, it is very interesting. So I love talking about it. So, okay, can you share the screen? And I will walk through what this is and do a brief demo of it. So here's the problem we're solving. Let's say you make a beautiful GG plot in your life. You're doing your work, you make a plot, but it's stuck on your computer, right? Maybe you want it to live in the physical realm, in real life. So what GGIRL does is it lets you take your GG plots in R and mail them as postcards. So you can mail it as a postcard. There it is sitting on my post office. You can make an art print of it. So you can actually have them as like art prints you put on your wall. Or the third option is you can get it made into a watercolor. Now you're like, okay, that seems kind of neat, I guess. But it does all of that from R, which I think is very neat. So here's what it's like in practice. So this is me. I'm using SaturnCloud right now. SaturnCloud is a cloud data science platform where you can do all your work, blah, blah, blah. It's very cool. I encourage you to check it out. It also connects to Comet. We have some Comet integration, which is great. So I'm going to open up our studio in SaturnCloud. I'm just going to show a real simple example. So this is R. And let's say I have a plot in R. And this plot, let's say, if you look, let's look at the plot. Here we go. Plot. It says Comet a lot. Ooh, how pretty. In the right colors and all that. So that's just standard GG plot. That has nothing to do with anything I've done. What I did is if you import GGIRL, my R package, you can use the command GG postcard on that. And if you use GG postcard, you give your email address, you give the address you want to send it to, and this is Comet's physical address that's on their website. So if you dox them, it's already public. I'm not giving out any secrets. You put the message on the back. So anyways, you take this function and you run it, and it'll take a couple of seconds. It's got to boot up a server on the back end, and it will actually just give it a second. Things are booting up. It's all good. I should have had the server boot up. Oh yeah, so let's pop it open. Here we go. And then it will bring you to this website. I'll zoom it in a little bit. And this gives you a preview of your postcard. This is what the front is going to look like of your postcard. It's got your GG plot on it. It tells you the message, the address. And then here's the cool part. You hit pay and submit. When you hit pay and submit, it opens up your credit card or Stripe, where you can put in your credit card information, which I'm not going to show because I don't want my credit card stolen. But you put in your credit card information and then you hit pay. And when you hit pay, it will then send you an email that says, thank you. Your postcard has been ordered and you will get it in 1 to 2 weeks. And then in 1 to 2 weeks, you'll get either your postcard or, in this example, you'll get like your physical art thing. Here's a poster I did via GGIRL by taking ggplot and printing it out as a poster. So what this means is this is an R package, which calls a Shiny server website. And that Shiny server website shows you and then calls Stripe to make the payment. And then if Stripe gets the payment correctly, it sends it back to the Shiny site, which sends an API request to mail a postcard, which mails a postcard to your physical address. So none of this is practical, but it is a marvel of engineering that an R package can call a Shiny app, which calls a payment, which sends a postcard. And I'm very proud of it, and I think it's very neat. And that is my side project.
Very cool. That's very cool. So Stripe integrates with Shiny?
No, well, I mean, there's no special integration. I had to build it myself with a bunch of API requests and stuff. So Stripe has an API. So if you go to like stripe.com/blah, blah, blah, like you can send I would like this payment, someone to make this payment, please. And you send that, you send your user to that URL, and then they make the Stripe payment, and then Stripe will send an API request back to Shiny. So I gave it my Shiny URL. And so when a payment is made, it sends it back to me. And then I know to send the postcard order API a request. So there's not really built-in Shiny integration for all this. This is just a whole bunch of API commands all connected to each other, including R making API command to my Shiny server, which kicks it all off.
Okay.
So a lot of stuff happening here.
Whew.
Yeah.
That is a lot of stuff happening here. So and I think this is amazing. And that's why I asked you to come on, of course, is because as long as I've known you, you've been doing interesting projects that I think are very cool. But so where did you first get the idea for this?
So like with most of my favorite projects, it simmered for a long time, which is to say like 5 years ago or something, probably like 5 years ago, I saw that there is an API that sends a postcard. So you do it, and I'll show you an example. There are millions of these, but I think it's like, let's do Lob is one of them. And so Lob is an API. It's called direct mail automation. And the idea is that you have your picture of a postcard and an address, and you do an API command, and it will mail the postcard for you. And I thought this was the neatest thing, because this takes something in the digital world, and in this case, in like, in the postcard, it takes the physical world and mails it to you. And I'm like, that's a cool, like when you do Rube Goldberg machines and you have like this kinetic energy turns into physical energy, turns into heat. Like this is electronic API turning into physical thing. And I'm like, I gotta hold on to that. But it took me about 5 years before I'm like, here's something I could maybe practically do with it.
You knew this existed first. It wasn't like, I wonder if I can send a postcard, let me find Lob. It was
right. And not only did I not know, I found this existed first and I sat on it, but like also like I didn't have the idea of like originally I'm like, well, what if you could send postcards to senators or blah, blah, blah. Like the idea of like having R send the postcard was several years after the idea of using an API to send postcards at all. So like there's actually I call it 3 separate ideas here. Idea 1 is mail a postcard at all via an API. Idea 2 is collect money in R. And idea 3 is use R to send the postcard. And like, those are all disconnected. And eventually they all came together.
Yeah. But I could send a ton of beautiful postcards to my senator.
You could do that. You can send, I've had people do like baby announcements, like baby, like, oh, blank, blank, blank baby was born or whatever, by sending ggplots with like information about their babies, or like, so people have actually done really meaningful and clever things with this API. Like it's pretty cool to watch people use it. But you can send to multiple addresses at the same time. So you could send a Christmas list, like your Christmas cards via all these. And yeah, or like if you have like your dissertation, like an image from your dissertation, you can make a poster out of it. Like you can actually do kind of neat stuff, which has been fun. And I will say this, like, so the sending the postcard's kind of silly, but like there are lots of instances where you can imagine a Shiny app having a monetization component
Yeah.
of like, hey, the Shiny app's cool. Want to donate to us? Or like, hey, the Shiny app's cool. If you pay this money, we'll unlock the premium features. So like, I think there's the Stripe part has a practical component.
No, totally.
Yeah.
And so, right, there's obviously all these different pieces. When you decided to work on this project, what did you think about tackling first? Sort of what was your thought process when you were thinking about how to actually go through solving this problem?
Okay, so after the 5 years of putting all the like different ideas together, but when I finally had the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna make R send a postcard for money, I broke it up into 3 chunks of work. Chunk 1 is how can I make an R command? So how can I make an R thing here that I run the R thing? How can I make it open up a website with the appropriate data loaded? Because like this, where if you run GG postcard, and then it takes a second to do the processing, and then it pops up a website where the website is loaded with your image. Like that's actually not obvious how you would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I had to do was I had to like I have to send the Shiny server the data to use, which ends up being complex. So sending data to Shiny is non-trivial, and I had to do some engineering around that. And then I split it up to the second part of how do I get money from Shiny? So making this pay and submit button, that was chunk 2 of work. And then chunk 3 of work is when you hit pay, how does it actually send a postcard? And so each of those I tackled as entirely separate problems. And then kind of more toward the end, I put them all together in one working thing.
That's amazing. So how long did it take you to do this?
So I had the working prototype. Oh, I kept track of this. It was a lot of hours. More hours than you would expect for a side project that has no practical use. But the base prototype didn't take very long, right? Just getting it. So R opens up a website, which takes a payment and sends a postcard is pretty straightforward. But like, let me go back. Things that ended up being tricky of like, I want this to actually look like a postcard with some shading, and I want a table. And like, here's a tricky thing, right? Like, here's something. If I say keep up the good work, and I put like 1,000 H's in here, right? What's gonna happen on this thing? You know, like, is this gonna get too long? On the back of the postcard, is it gonna be a problem? Do I want it to have a GGIRL logo on the back of the postcard? Or, and then I actually ordered a bunch of postcards, and like it was basically working, but the printer I selected, the quality wasn't good enough so that the postcards they're sending back like just didn't look that good. And like you can actually see here, like in this one, you can see there's some like times where the post office put like little blemishes on it. And so like, what about the paper quality? Blah, blah, blah. Like the difference between getting it working and getting it polished ended up being probably 3 times longer than getting it working.
Well, and we've both worked for Vistaprint, so we know a thing or two about postcards.
That's right. Yeah, paper-based and all that. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so it took a while. And I also did beta tests because, again, I wanted this to be stable. And like, I've spent many years working in enterprise software, so I want to make sure it can be load tested. So like I had people, I gave them free money and I said, hey, go buy some postcards, see if they work. And like, it turns out they didn't ship to Europe correctly. And like, yeah, it was a whole thing. So easy to get it working, hard to get it working well.
Yeah, no, you never think about all those little pieces. Everything always sounds so cool when it's an idea in your living room that you're going to go attack.
Yeah.
So now you also allow for commissioning a watercolor. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
So this is another thing. So I released this in 3 phases. The first phase was just the postcard phase, where you go to, you run this command, it opens up Shiny, and Shiny makes a payment request. The second thing I did, and then that payment request causes an API to send a postcard. The second thing was these posters. And so for the posters, there was not an obvious API to order a poster. The way that because I do prints, like art prints and stuff I sell, I will go to my local printer and have them print it. They have a website that you can put orders in on, but they don't have an API for that. So I'm like, okay, so do the posters, should I like make a web script that will automatically put the order in for you and like do all this? Then I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. If someone orders an art print, I'm just going to go to the website and order it myself. So I'm going to add a human layer of work because like I could have automated that, but given the traffic, it would have taken way more time to keep the website script working than it would be to just go to, you know, printer.com/whatever and order the prints myself. And so I made this and I'm like, well, let's even take that one step further. And then I'm like, well, I like doing watercolor in my free time. So I'll make a third version of this where when you type in the GG watercolor command, it will give you the preview and then I'll just get the image and then I'll personally color it myself. So now there's no other person. It's just you put in the payment, or actually you don't even put the payment. It sends me an email saying, hey, I want this made, and then I will send you a custom Venmo link to pay me, and then I will paint it and I will mail it to you. So it actually, the order I did it was the most complicated to automate to the simplest, like, oh, this just sends me an email and then I paint it. But this is like, I guess, I don't know, the more artistically interesting, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's way cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people have ordered the postcards. Some people have ordered the prints. No one has yet ordered a watercolor, but I'm waiting someday. Someone's going to have that.
You hear that, folks. You can be the first person to order a watercolor from Jacqueline.
Yeah. 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 Oh, and I do have, for not for the watercolors, but the other ones, I actually asked people in our community to give me like, you know, I commissioned examples. So like there is some example art. This is a magic eye demo you can do, and there's like lots of like some examples, or like the map one is an example. So if you don't know what kind of thing you want to order, you can run the command to just make a map for me. You give it the location, make a map. So like it is kind of like I wanted to give people things to spark ideas, and they could just order those, which again is not part of the base prototype, but it is ways that I wanted to flesh this out into a full product. Which has been fun. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, and Kate just hopped on. Thank you for joining, Kate. Always good to see you.
Yeah.
So were there any other gotchas along the way?
There were 1,000 gotchas. So one gotcha that I thought was especially challenging is, so we're going to go back to the postcard. I'll show up the postcard for instance. So Stripe has to tell me that a payment was sent for me to then order the postcard. What I found out is what I first did was I had Stripe, when it tells me, hey, we're sending you an API request saying, hey, we're sending you the request that the payment was made. And so when I got that request, I would then order the postcard. And once the postcard was ordered, I would send back to Stripe being like, okay, I acknowledge that the payment was made and I'm good. But it turns out Stripe has a very, very short window between when Stripe says, hey, I sent you the payment, and when they expect you to go, okay, cool, I got it. Because they don't want that. If that doesn't come right away, then they really don't want you to not know that you got the payment. So what they'll do is they'll try again. So if they don't hear right away that you got the payment, they will try to make the payment again. And so the first time I ran this, I made the payment, or the payment got sent to me. I ordered the postcard, but it's taking a while. So then Stripe sent it again, and ordered the postcard is taking a while. So basically, I didn't have a catch in there. So that first ordered a ton of postcards before I'm like, wait, this is not, that was a big gotcha. And then I actually had to make a whole
expensive one.
Expensive. Well, I was able to cancel the orders in time, thankfully, but it was like terrifying. Because like, this is my credit card. Like, it's ordering it via my credit card. It's like, this is, yeah, exactly. This is real money on the line, right? This is not like most of my side projects. Like, I could lose money. But then ultimately what I had to do is I had to have Shiny like fork the process. So Shiny would respond to Stripe, and then in a whole separate R session, it would make the API request, which ended up adding a lot of engineering just because of this one Stripe thing. And like, there was a lot of gotchas like that. I think that is the most noteworthy. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And you did this all by yourself? You weren't playing with it with any friends? Just
no. And I spent a lot of weekends working on it. Yeah, I think I maybe kept track of the time I worked on it for a while, and I was just like, I don't want to. But yeah, it was like 6 weeks where I'm like, oh, I got some free time. I'm gonna add the I'm gonna now add the blah 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 feature, and like it just got kind of silly. And I had like dev and prod. I still have dev and prod, and like yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So Devin Pratt, how would you say you are with keeping up with like best practices and?
I cared more because again, this is dealing with real money and stuff. So like, I don't want to. I did feel like I had to keep up with best practices. Like I didn't want to do my development in prod. I wanted to make sure people, like if someone's going to order their like baby shower things, I wanted to make sure that was up even while I was developing the next version. So I have to have separate things like that. But I did take some shortcuts. Like in theory, I should be using microservices where I had one website to host the like order page and another website and like a whole other API that deals with actually fulfilling the orders. And I'm like, I don't want to manage all that. So instead, I just made one really big app, one monolithic app that handled all of it. And like that, I would say is not a best practice. And I don't have unit tests so much because like really the easiest way to test it is to just go through the flow yourself. So like I didn't do that stuff, but like I do have dev and prod. I do take care of like making sure my keys for all the APIs are handled securely. And like I don't have data leaks. Like if you put your social security number on a postcard, I don't want someone to like hack into my Google Cloud bin that has all the images to get your, like, I don't know. I want to make sure it was secure. I did stuff like that. But please don't send a postcard with your social security number.
Yeah. So are you still working on pieces of this, or do you consider this you've moved on with your life?
I am, I have a little bit here and there occasionally I touch up on. It's mostly stable and done, I would say. I'm actually presenting on this at our studio conference next month, which will be a lot of fun. But yes, that is nothing I would say is particularly still in development.
Okay. All right. Oh, and George said hello. Hi, George. Thank you for joining. Do you have advice for somebody who gets an idea for a personal project? Are there any resources, or do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. So here's the thing I have learned, which is I find for me, I don't get motivated just by the technology, right? Like in the sense of like, if I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do, before I understood how to do deep learning and neural networks, I knew I wanted to learn deep learning neural networks, but just being like, well, I want to learn this one technology, so I'm going to read up a bunch about it and then learn it doesn't really work for me. It works a lot better if I have a project I'm interested in and then I'm going to make it work. Like this project was interesting to me, and that was the motivating factor to learn Stripe and some of the postcard API stuff and blah, blah, blah. So like for me, it's worth it to find a project you're interested in, but you have to be very careful because if the project is too complicated, then you get burnt out on it. And so like, it's like the thing where like people are like, I want to make a video game, like an indie video game. They're like, okay, cool. They're like, and I want it to be as good as a AAA game put out by a studio with $100 million. And you're like, well, maybe start by making Pong, right? So like, I think when you're looking for side projects, I think find something that motivates you, but find something small enough that you can like kind of chip at it a while. Or so like this one was good for me because I could chip at the getting R to call shiny part. And when I got kind of tired, like I could do that and then I could kind of like walk away and work on that. And I didn't have to worry about that while at the same time worrying about the Stripe payment and the same time ordering. Like I could keep each one as like its own little project. So try and really make it so you don't have like too big of a thing to tackle. Just like work each day, come in with just what's the little part of this project you want to work on.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm the same way. And I'm also into like, I always feel like I'm in a rush for the end, like my computer vision project where I'm detecting the bus. It's like, I just want to get it to a point where it's working. And now I have like, a bunch of false positives. I've tried a different algorithm and it's sort of just sitting because I got it working at one point.
Yeah, I think that's very common too, of like, I got it working. I have actually a lot of side projects like that, but like I got it working. And then once it's working, I'm like, but this isn't as cool as I hoped it would be. Actually, this is a very good example.
Yeah. Do you have any interesting side projects that haven't seen the light of day yet that you want?
I will tell you this. So this example version where it's like a sunrise sunset plot, that was a project from 2 years before where I'm like, I want to make a thing where it actually when GG, and that was actually one of the motivators for this project was like, I want to make something where an R Shiny app where you can print out a poster of these of these plots. But I started working on it, and then the plots at the first weren't very pretty. And also, it turns out like Alaska specifically, where the sun sets after midnight. It breaks everything, and there are time zone issues, and it's just like, it was a huge hassle. So I let that sit for years until finally I'm working on GGIRL, and I'm like, well, I need a demo project. Oh, hey, I have that daylight, that daylight plot. I'm just gonna finish that and put it in here. So sometimes things get stalled for years, and I think that's fine. Like, don't feel bad if that happens. Mm-hmm. And for every project like this where I did end up using it in the end, there are like 5 where I didn't use it in the end.
Yeah, no, that's really, you didn't think about releasing it too and just being like, well, this doesn't work we don't service Alaska, we don't service anywhere else?
No, I don't think putting half-done things out in the world is fun personally. Like, I don't know, it doesn't have it kind of works. I don't know. I'd rather, for me, I enjoy more just sitting on it and then maybe it never sees the light of day. Or maybe, what's a good one that I did that never saw the light of day, but I think could have some real promise still? I got 2 for you. They're related. So one is Dan Savage is a sex advice columnist for like 20 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like a couple of years ago when we were in one of those big waves of, I trained an AI to generate new blah, blah, blahs. I downloaded all the data from his articles and I trained an AI to try and write new advice column articles. And I did it and it ran. It just wasn't very interesting because they all just sounded kind of real. And I'm like, well, this works, but it's not interesting.
I wanted it to be weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like, dump him. And I'm like, yeah, that is the advice you'd give there. Like, I don't know. It wasn't that fun. And then the other one I did is the r/relationships is a r/relationships is a r/relationships is a subreddit. Mm-hmm. So on Reddit, that's like people ask a relationship question. Like, I am a 22-year-old male and my girlfriend is giving me troubles, or girlfriend, whatever. And I'm like, I want to train a neural network on that, or like, I want to do data analysis on that. And I started working on it. I'm like, this is not interesting. So I still have all that data. I still could do all those things, but right now it's just kind of sitting there. And like, I don't know, maybe in 5 years I will find that fun again and I'll do it. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you had the neural net trained on the offensive license plates too.
I did that. That one worked. Yeah, I have a brand. That one worked. That one was fun. But that one was another one where I actually, oh my God, this is actually really funny. So, okay, so the preamble is, I'll actually just go to it. J Nolis, offensive. I always forget the band. Here we go. So this is the project. This is another side project I work on, which is a neural network that I fed at all these Arizona license plates that were banned, and it generates new license plates that are not allowed in Arizona, or would not be allowed in Arizona because they would probably get banned. So this is a neural network generates offensive license plates. They're very funny, a lot of fun. I, again, sat on that data set for years. Like, I had a list of offensive license plates, and I knew I wanted to train an AI to do it, but I didn't know how to use neural networks back when I got the data set. And so eventually I'm like, you know what? I just saw a new tutorial on doing neural networks in R. I'm going to use this data set on it. And I trained the neural network, and they did not come out well, and it did not work. And I actually was at a data science conference. I was talking to someone who does a lot of neural network stuff with language. And I was telling them about this project, and they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, that's a really stupid use of a neural network. And it wasn't working.
Yeah, it is.
I was spiritual on this. And I sat on it for like 2 months. And then later I went back and realized I had an off by 1 error, like where I just was pulling the wrong column in one place. And then once I did it, it generated all the offensive license plates, and it's very funny. But here's another example. I've generated all the license plates. They're really funny, but this is even funnier once it puts it on the actual license plates with the image and the font and all that. So like, again, the difference between getting it done and I want to take this the extra mile and give it the polish. Like, I love the polish phase and the projects where I actually deliver it. So I really wanted to make sure I got it finished. I made the images, I got the joke really right, and then I delivered it.
And do you think that you learned a lot about, hyperparameter tuning or different aspects of neural networks? Or do you feel like you are able to call a function and get results and it works and that's great?
Well, I did that project. I didn't know anything about neural networks. And then I did that project. And I'm like, actually, neural networks aren't nearly as hard as people make them out to be. And I ended up giving a whole conference tour on that concept of like, how do you easily get started with neural networks? Because I think they're not as hard as people make them out to be. So I did that. And then I actually did a consulting gig for like 2 years using neural networks and NLP and all that stuff. And there's where I learned all the more complex stuff about the hyperparameter tunings and the different types of layers and all that. But I wouldn't have gotten that had I not started on the neural network offensive license plate thing. So I don't think the side project taught me everything, but it did give me the kernel I could start with and then build from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've shared a lot about the project. Is there anything that we haven't, any points you want to make that we haven't had a chance to share yet?
I don't think so. That's really the whole nuts and bolts of the thing. And yeah, again, if you want people want to know the more our inner workings, so like how do you actually make these API requests and stuff, I am talking at our Studio Conf in the end of July about it. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. So where can people find and follow you if they want to watch more of your?
Yeah. So the best thing, sorry, my phone is apparently not silent. The best place, here we go. Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. The best place to try and reach me is on Twitter. If you just search Twitter, Jacqueline Nolis, or my handle is Sky Tetra, SKYETETRA. I post there. I don't post as much as I used to. I'm getting a little burnt out on social media. But anyways, that's where you can go. And also, I do a lot of webinars and stuff for SaturnCloud, the company I'm a chief product officer of. And it's just SaturnCloud's a really cool data science platform where if you're like, I just want to do a lot of computing on a computer that is much bigger than my laptop, and I want to do it very easily in Python and R, SaturnCloud is a great place for that. And it has great Comet integration. So if you're using Comet and you want to track your experiments, we have examples and stuff so you can get started with Comet very quickly. But yeah, if you go to SaturnCloud and you go to our events page, you can see lots of other places I'm talking to.
Okay. And so we did just have a question, and I'd love to have a chance to answer it. How to get started with neural networks?
I will, here in extremely self-serving way, I will link to the talk that is me talking about. Here we go. Wait, that's a commercial. Here we go. Do I put in the comments? Here we go. I don't know if I can comment. It's not letting me comment. Weird. Okay, I'm going to.
It is on LinkedIn, so you should be able to add it on the comments on.
Okay, that sounds like something I won't be able to do, but I will send it to you right now. Or here, I will show you. If you go to, I'll just share my screen. If you go to my website.
Oh, we're not able to see it. Are you sharing?
Yeah, wait. Here we go. If you go to my website, can you see it? Are we good?
Yes.
You see it? Excellent. Here, and then let me move this. Whoa, infinite circle. Okay. You go to my website, you go to talks. I have a talk, Deep Learning Isn't Part, I Promise. And that, especially if you want to do R stuff, that is my premier introduction to doing deep learning in R. That is like a 20-minute one. I also, I have a more extended one. If you go to SaturnCloud.io and you go to our events page, and we have an extended version of that, which is Intro to Neural Networks in R, this link right here. This is a more long version of that talk that goes into more detail. So either of those are good resources for getting started with neural networks in R.
Awesome. Perfect.
Cool.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Jacqueline, it was so awesome to speak with you about your project. I was really looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint. So awesome, everyone. I can't wait to see you again for the next The Cool Data Project show, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.
Great.
All right.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.